And there's nobody better to talk to you about this than Lord Haringey, the former leader of, Toby was the leader of Haringey Council, but also you will have seen him on the news on many, many issues in relation to London, but more recently on the Olympic Legacy Report a couple of days ago. Toby, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Nazir, for inviting me here, and I'm very pleased to be here to offer some solidarity to people here in terms of the crimes that they have suffered. And I would just want to say that my particular interest in this is not only was from my time as a public representative in North London, where there obviously have been issues of Hajj fraud and so on. Also my time chairing the Metropolitan Police Authority, and I'm pleased that there are representatives here from the Metropolitan Police. But also more recently, in that since May, I've been chairing the National Trading Standards Board, and obviously the complaints and so on that you have talked about have been channelled in many instances through trading standards who have managed to stop it, and I'm particularly pleased that Sajida Nazir is here today, and I think has given the presentation, already given the presentation, because when I visited Birmingham Trading Standards a few months ago, it was a very striking presentation that I received then on the work that she and her team have been doing to try and tackle this. And let's be clear that there are an awful lot of nasty people around who will prey on people who of goodwill and so on, who may be vulnerable or whatever else. But the idea of trying to con people out of money when they are trying to pursue their religious beliefs, a fundamental sacred duty in terms of Hajj, I think is particularly offensive. So I'm delighted that in my new role, particularly as, and it's actually interesting, I've visited for completely different reasons a voluntary group in the London Borough of Haringey last week, and I was I knew about talking about what I was currently doing, and I mentioned I was chairing the National Trading Standards Board, and immediately the issue of Hajj fraud came up there. So it's a big issue in parts of London, it's a big issue in Birmingham, it's a big issue in all sorts of areas. What is going to be critically important is that people continue to report this through the appropriate channels so that we can get a national picture and support the work that's being done to try and tackle those who are perpetrating this dreadful fraud. So I'm delighted to be here. My apologies that I'm not going to be able to stay for very much longer, but I'm very, very pleased indeed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know Mike is here as well, so Mike, if you want to come around just on that side. The deputy leader of the Labour group in the House of Lords, Lord Hunt, will have to be back in the chamber by 3 o'clock, just after 3 o'clock because of the questions. So I'm going to ask, because one of the team of supporters for the Association of British Hujjaj, including myself, Lord Hunt has been there every year to support the launch, and many meetings in this Parliament as well as in Birmingham. The floor is yours, Bill.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I can only give you a few minutes, but my boss, Jack Royal, is attending a funeral today, so I've been having to do lots of other things. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues in the House of Lords as well. As you probably know, I mean, I attended the first sort of major meeting of ABH in Birmingham many years ago, and had the great joy of watching Lord Ahmed have an injection, I think that was the start of a long campaign to raise awareness. And I do think we should acknowledge the success of that campaign, and I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that the knowledge amongst pilgrims of health and safety issues is much higher now than it was, 12 years ago. And I do want to pay tribute to ABH. I'm very proud of its Birmingham base, but I'm also delighted too that these key messages are ones that are shared around the country. And my colleague Toby Harris talk about some of the London dynamics. That's the first thing. Second is, I also pay tribute to the Birmingham City Council, and particularly to the City Chiefs Trading Standards Officer, because I think that the work that's been done by the department has been exceptional. And I've had a number of meetings. We've also had meetings with some of the agents around which obviously there are lots of issues that still need to be tackled. But it's been very helpful to have a local authority that has been prepared to engage. I think the third thing is the future, both about ABH, because clearly there are issues around the support that ABH needs, which is still not being resolved, and there's no easy way forward, but I think it has to be a combination of support both from both the government but also the community as well. And this is an issue that needs to be tackled. The long-term future of ABH is going to be secured. Second is the issue of evidence, documentation and proof, if you like, of when things go wrong. And it is a message that I think is particularly relevant to pilgrims, which no doubt you're going to discuss. But clearly, if action is going to be taken under current legislation, there has to be evidence and documentation, and pilgrims have to be encouraged to use it. I think just the third issue is really about how ABH can work more effectively with some of other local agencies, both in Birmingham, London, and other parts of the country. And I hope that perhaps in the next few months there will be a further opportunity for us to have discussions about how this might happen. Many of you know I chair the Heart of England NHS Foundation Trust, which covers east of Birmingham. And I feel that there are some wider health issues which we need to tackle collectively. If I mention the sort of epidemic of diabetes, for instance, in East Birmingham, and the shortened life expectancy because of it, it is an issue which, okay, goes wider than the ABH's original remit. But I do think that we need to work together to see how we can, this health message has worked very effectively. I feel we need to widen it into the communities.
Thank you very much. The House is about to sit. Mike, have you got some time?
Very briefly. I'm only here for about 10-15 minutes maximum.
Do you want to listen to the commander of the police and then speak, or do you want to speak first? You have a choice.
I'll listen.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much. I'm now going to ask the London Police Commander Steve Head, who has got experience, as I was mentioning earlier on, that a couple of years ago, probably, when you actually successfully prosecuted, arrested and put somebody away because of the Hajj fraud, and you also have an awareness campaign as well. Okay, but on my agenda is Commander Steve Head. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak. What we have here is, we also have here for representatives from the Metropolitan Police and from the actual City of London Police, the people who do the work. Perhaps if I start by thanking yourself, Lord Mohammed, and the ABH for inviting me to speak. I want to talk very, very quickly just about the new national role that I have. I want to talk about the strategic stance that policing is now taking in relation to this issue, not just here in London, but right across the country. The City of London Police have a responsibility beyond individual police boundaries now. I am the national coordinator for that within the City of London Police. And one of the things that I wanted to do here, having heard the very moving words of people who have been victimised by this, is one, highlight the fact that the police accept that they haven't done all they could in the past, they haven't been coordinated, and hopefully this move to be more strategic will help with that. to acknowledge the really good work that's been done by people like the ABH, but also by trading standards, and particularly Birmingham trading standards. But equally, they are a bright light, and not all trading standards have been that good, in the same way that that's the case for policing, and show how we are working more closely with them to try and actually respond to the needs of victims. So perhaps if I can just spend 1 minute or 2 minutes telling you about the new systems, and also giving everybody here an undertaking that my office, the National Coordinator's Office, is championing this issue, and anybody who experiences difficulties can come through to my office, not just experiencing difficulties in London, but anywhere across the country, and we will assist in every way we can. So what are the issues? The issues that we've introduced now is there is now one system of reporting. We have an awareness campaign out there with videos and with a website. I don't know if it's on the ABH website, the links. If it isn't, it certainly should be, and we should make sure that happens, because it's really important that people understand the message that we're trying to get out there. And that's how to report these things when they happen, and why it's important to report them. And I think somebody earlier said people don't report it for a number of reasons. I know that part of that is because there is a limited expectation of what policing will do. I acknowledge that, and I hope that we will be judged by our actions, not by our words. And in actual fact, we are moving forward with this new system. We have got teams within the City of London Police that will operate right across the country, and they will operate in partnership with the trading standards and anybody else, and they do want to work with victims. We also understand that not everybody has confidence in the police more generally, which is why it's really important for us, and for me and my office, to work with the ABH. We cannot reach into your communities without your assistance. We simply need to work together to make the impact that we all want to see. I would also maybe just reiterate in closing, please do not think that this is everybody who goes on the pilgrimage. The vast majority of people who go have a fantastic, wonderful spiritual experience. But if this is happening to one person, then it is one person too many, and we can do something about it. The police hopefully have got our act together in terms of creating this national structure, giving the national coordination role, building on the good work that particularly the Metropolitan Police have done, but also other forces and other trading standards, and actually taking that right across the country. Please, please, and I put this out there now, please report these things when they happen. Judge us by what we do. We want to work with you. It's really important to us that we make this a success. And I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and speak to an influential group of this kind.
Thank you very much for that assurance that the message is going to go through to the police. And we give you assurance as members of the community, and there are many influential members of the press here who will be reporting back to the community, that we will work together to make sure that no victim, and like you said, one is one too many, and unfortunately there are over 500. And 200 of them are from my friend Mike Gates's constituency from Ilford, where he's Member of Parliament and also former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, and perhaps probably that's the reason why, Mike, you've been invited. Mike Yates is Member of Parliament from Ilford, and this Abbott Travels was from Ilford. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, can I say, first of all, I'm sorry I was late. I was at another meeting and I have to go on to another one, and then we'll be having some votes in the Commons as well, and I'm not sure when. I wanted to come along here today to listen and learn, but also, and I'm just saying I'm pleased, and I'll give you my contact details so that you can know me directly. I've had a number of constituents with problems come to me over several years actually, but in the last 2 years I had particular difficulties, and I've done all the things that you normally do as a Member of Parliament, but you find sometimes organisations don't respond to your letters, and you are then into a situation where people disappear, and it's very frustrating. And clearly many people think that because a Member of Parliament is involved, then you can just instruct and then the whole system solves the problem. Sadly, it never works like that. The other problem that we had this last year was with the Saudi government making changes with regard to the procedures at the last minute, which caused some difficulties for some people who were no longer able to go and had difficulties, therefore they'd spent money, and there was an issue, and I've been in correspondence with the Saudi embassy about that on several cases. And I think all I would say is that it's reiterating the thing that Philip Hunt said. If we are going to make representations, we need full information, and we need people, if possible, to give us pieces of paper which can prove something, because one of the problems in all of this, if it's done by word of mouth, and if money is handed over to somebody who is met, perhaps through a mosque, perhaps through a friend, and there is no documentation, it's very hard. It's hard for the police, but it's also hard for us when we're making representations as elected members. And the other point is, contact the Member of Parliament early rather than too late, because sometimes you can make representations at a point where it can make a difference. If it's left to a long time afterwards, then it's sometimes more difficult. And so that's all I want to say. I'm really pleased that I've had the opportunity to be here, and just to say I expect, sadly, that next year and the year after I will continue to have some constituents contacting me, but hopefully not in the numbers that related to this particular company.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for your supporting work. Now, I think I got it wrong earlier on. Detective Chief Inspector Desmond McHugh was responsible for the great work that he did. So I'm going to ask him to speak.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Lord Army, thank you very much. So, going back in history a little bit, and the reason why I wanted to come today, and I'm grateful for the invitation from the aviation colleague, I think it was said by the gentleman who recounted his being a victim of this crime a little while ago, and he said he looks to the people who have the professionalism and the skill to do something about it. And I suppose I want to take 5 minutes to say that the police do have the professionalism and the skill to do something about it, and obviously Commander Head has articulated what procedures are in place now. But so just to tell you the story of my encounter, so we go back to November 2008, the Hujjaj of 2008, and I was working at Tower Hamlets Police at the time, when all of a sudden I had a great deluge of mainly Bangladeshi Muslims from Tower Hamlets knocking on the door and saying that they've been the victim of a significant fraud involving Hajj, involving someone called Mohammed Farouk Ahmed, who had operated let's not call it a business, operated a concern in Brick Lane. I heard 360 accounts, very similar to what we've heard today. And I can tell you I've got 23 years service in the Metropolitan Police, and I've investigated countless crimes of all types. So why 5 years later am I still keen to be involved and sitting here? It was because of the impact really that made upon me. I don't think I even knew what Hajj was in 2008. But when I heard the accounts of those people and that massive number who had entrusted £2,500 and more to this person for the pilgrimage to Hajj and the journey. It's a journey I came to understand once in their lifetime on many occasions. And these were elderly, in many cases, and vulnerable people. It really had an impact on me, and I was determined that we do something about it. And so we set about with a small team, but a very determined team, to try and get the accounts of 360 people, and language was a difficulty, and we overcame that. And there were many, many challenges in that investigation, and it was a very, very difficult matter to investigate and bring to prosecution. And one of the significant challenges that has been raised just now was the keeping of accounts and the auditability, and trying to prove who paid what to whom and when, and trying to backtrack that, particularly if you recovered money. But we were successful, we were tenacious, we recovered over 310 passports, I think, and we made some decisions, some difficult decisions against passport office advice, to return those passports to people, that allowed many of them to rebook at short notice. We had some arrangements with the ministry to allow them to do that. So it was a great effort. I was also very well aided by local councillors and the ABH and Birmingham Trading Standards. We had great cooperation from our own trading standards in Tower Hamlets, and locally did a very good job. But to try and spread the word, we had a lot of victims from Birmingham, and we reached out there, and they did a fantastic job. But we were successful, and we found Mohammed Farouk Ahmed in Bangladesh, and we found he'd got about £600,000, and we found £250,000 of that in Bangladesh. And through the community efforts, and it really was, and through the efforts of particular media organisations as well, we persuaded, and the government in Bangladesh actually, I think it was because it was such a sensitive issue, everyone had to help us. There was no putting this one under the carpet, and the pressure was kept up. And so we got Mohammed Farouk Ahmed back to the UK, and we got £250,000 back to the UK, which was the first ever successful return of laundered money back to the United Kingdom. And so on a guilty plea, he got 6 years imprisonment. And a great part of that, again, was the impact. We brought along a number of victims to the Crown Court at Snaresbrook. His Honour Judge Radford presiding there. I think it was those accounts that were heard that got this man 6 years imprisonment. And we were able to return about 50p in the pound to the victims through the court compensation service. So it's an example of how we can investigate these things. They are difficult. And so I suppose I want to come along to say that we can do that. I'm pleased that the City Police have come along, and this is not new work for the City Police. I think over a year ago they started an awareness campaign, and it's to get the message out there that there is procedures. And I think maybe my colleague Matt, who's a detective inspector in the City Police, could maybe add a couple of minutes to that, just to talk about the actual process and how we need to go through the process to understand the volume. And it's only then we can really sort of act in unison. But it's to say thank you to the ABH, thank you to Trading Standards, thank you to the community who assisted me on that investigation. It can be done. It's difficult. There is a facility now that we'll try and capture everything nationally what's going on. That helps link up these people all over the country who are defrauding others from all over the place. And to say that lastly, I suppose, is to say that the keeping of accounts is really vital. We found it particularly difficult when we were trying to give money back to people. The accounting was somewhat to be desired, and so we needed to try and push that message. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you. And Matt, do you want to say a couple of words?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things that have come up from what Mr. Head said and what Des has said there, and it's from the floor about reporting it. And if I could just spend 30 seconds just to give you an email address and a telephone number that if you in your community believe you've been the victim of fraud, the one-stop shop is the Action Fraud. It's the National Fraud Reporting Centre. If you just Google Action Fraud, or the telephone number is 0300 123 2040. And the principle of that is...
Sorry, could you do that?
Yes.
0300 123?
It's 123 3040 or 2030. One of those things. If you Google Action Fraud, sorry, I didn't write it down, I don't want to put this here, I'm afraid. And what will happen with that is we can then collate the reports, because if we don't understand the extent of the problem, then law enforcement trading standards don't know what response to adhere to it. A number of people have mentioned that 25,000 British citizens go on Hajj each year. They spend about £125 million. That is a huge amount of money. The actual extent of fraud last year in 2012 from official reporting processes was 44 complaints amounting to £300,000. Now in this room alone you have discussed cases which blow that reporting out of the window. So what we really need is people to pick up the phone and go onto the website to report it. Then when it gets reported and collated, we can then look at the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau can look at those reports, and then they can disseminate it to the right police force. And that's what happened in October. There were reports in West Midlands, London, and somewhere in East Midlands. That got collated, reviewed by my team of officers. I authorised a warrant. I led a team down into Ilford. We executed the warrant, secured evidence, arrested the suspect, and are now doing an investigation. That would not have happened if those 5 groups of people hadn't have reported it in the manner that it did. So to give trust and confidence back to the community, we can do some operational policing, we can take that enforcement action. And then once we start that journey, we can do some of the great work that Birmingham Trading Standards and Des have done in terms of putting people away in prison, which is obviously great, but as important is getting money back to victims through confiscation and compensation. So Action Fraud is the way to report it, and then police forces up and down the country, and the national response that Mr. Head referred to, can take some action.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's important that obviously you know, but I just want to repeat because of the sensitivity and because of the importance of this journey. There are a lot of people who actually save money at home, and they save it cash, and they give money to the travel agent and these tour operators cash. So obviously there's this problem of evidence, and there are some of these businesses, they prefer cash because then they know that there's no that's right, tax, and also there is no evidence as well, because they know what they're about to do. But we need to make sure that we tell people to pay through bank, through credit cards, through checkbooks, so it is easy for people to trace and also to try and get money back. Thank you very much for that, and thank you to the police and Trading Standards for the great work that you are doing. Do we have Zubair Khan, Acting Crime Scene Coordinator, West Midlands.
Yeah, thank you. Your Lordships, Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for providing us the platform here today to talk about this very critical issue which is affecting the Muslim community up and down the country. I'm an investigator, and my role is to investigate crime forensically, and what I would suggest anybody in the community who's a victim for you to secure the evidence, whether it's through photographic, documentation, video, or anything that the police can actually pinpoint what's actually happened. And it's important that we do not confine that just to our communities, but have a multi-agency coordinated approach where we can share best practice through trading standards, through our police forces up and down the country, and everyone has a role to play in this. The community, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and other organisations. We need to work together to put the victims' experience as best as possible. As has already been mentioned, this is a very few travel agents who are making misery out of the travellers, and it's deeply regrettable, and it's a shame that these so-called operators are preying on vulnerable people. And we've had the successful outcomes of different operators to be convicted, and that's good news, but we need to work smarter and harder to do more. And the great work has been done by Birmingham City Council. West Midlands Police has a role to play as well. And as a member of West Midlands Police, I'll be very happy to work with any organisation that we can highlight and secure evidence and convict the people responsible.
Thank you very much. Now, so far we've concentrated on travel, tour operators, sadly fraud, what has been done in relation to that. And now I think we need to change it a little bit. And one of the ABH's executive members, Dr. Syed Raza Hussain, who has been very active right from the beginning and has been advising not only ABH but also the community in terms of the health awareness, health and safety and health awareness campaigns. He's going to talk about the British Hujjaj health concerns today. And the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, Hajj is one of the basic principles of Islam. Every Muslim is expected to undertake this sacred pilgrimage, if he can afford it, at least once in his lifetime. From the UK, some 125 pilgrims travel to Saudi Arabia each year in this direction, and their number is on the increase. The majority of them are in the middle to old age group, and vast numbers of them do suffer from one or more chronic diseases, such as high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, asthma, arthritis, etc. Regular intake of the appropriate medication